Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be talking about my fashion portfolio. I'm going to be walking you through my portfolio and showing each image, talking about the medium, and talking about the general description that I talked about in my portfolio in Slide Room. I'm also going to be talking about essays, GPA, extracurriculars, stats, etc. And I'm going to be giving some tips for those of you that are applying to fashion school, as I was doing a few months ago as well. Timestamps for each subject of the video will be in the description if you want to look at that before you get started. And now I'm going to get right into it. So this first piece is a self-portrait that I did in colored pencil. And I wanted to put this self-portrait first because it makes your portfolio more personal if you include a self-portrait at least once. And to make it your first image is also good because it makes it more personal and it makes it seem like you're a real person and not just someone that this reviewer has to look through among thousands of portfolios. So that is important. And this next one is just a fruit study to show that I can do more technical work. It's not super realistic, but it does show that I can render a bit, and it shows some color theory with the different color placement of the fruits and the blocks behind it. This is a portrait that I did based off of Lord of the Flies, but I wanted to create my own narrative based off of it. So I did a portrait of a boy who is not fighting with other boys over the territory like in Lord of the Flies, but he's like the king of his own island. So I wanted to associate the boy with the island by making his eyes super green and by giving him this flower crown thing that I attached, which was like three-dimensional. These are two pieces that are related, so I put them together into one. And the Frida one is a portrait of Frida. The background is done with a variety of different mediums, so there's watercolor, acrylic, and then the front is done with colored pencil and some ribbon around her neck. And then the second piece is an oil painting that I did following Frida's idea of personal growth represented through plants. So as you can see, there's a hole in this person's center and some plants are growing out of it. I talked about how in many of Frida Kahlo's paintings, she has images of growth and trauma, so that is associated with my oil painting. And this is a study that I did as I was looking out the window one day. For 3 hours I just sat down and drew the view from my window, and I talked about that process in my description in Slide Room. And I talked about how I wanted to pay attention to my surroundings more and create more art based off of my surroundings. And I thought that it showed good contrast and line work, so that was another good thing. This is a mixed media piece that I did for my Mexico concentration for AP Art. And there is colored pencil, there is Copic marker, there's Micron pen, and there is some collage elements with the skull and little bits of magazine paper stuff. This is a really simple drawing that I did in my art class. We had to take pictures of a class skeleton and draw a specific part of the skeleton, so I did that. And I think it shows good contrast and rendering. This is a piece from my sketchbook, which is based off of two images, but I kind of melded them together into one to create more of a flowy, interesting composition. And then I mimicked the flowiness of the composition with these weird lines with different pens. These are two sketchbook pages that I put together because, like the Frida pieces, they kind of go together. They're both about femininity and the female body. So I put them together because I think not only thematically do they go well, but also the aesthetics. The colors are kind of coordinated. So I talked about that and why these two sketchbook pages go together and the significance of each one in my description. This is the part where we get into the fashion in my portfolio finally. And these are two designs that I did based off of Mexico City, as you can see with the pink, yellow, and blue color palette. It just reminded me of Mexico City, and the floral pants. So I talked about how I designed this mini collection for a day out in the city, and I wanted to create some pieces that could be worn together or mixed and matched for different occasions, and I also drew the flats and included the fabrics to show that I was a little bit knowledgeable on that. And this is a more abstract or artistic fashion piece, not so much practical. And this is 3 fashion figures wearing different assortments of shapes. And I put these shapes together to create new silhouettes, unlike ones that I had seen in stores, to create more, not necessarily avant-garde work, but just funky but still ready to wear items. And I created this in Photoshop digitally. So going back to this first image, I used this image for the base for my Parsons challenge. And if you don't know what the Parsons challenge is, you take one of your pieces and you base 1 or more pieces based off of that one. So I created 2 more pieces based off of this first self-portrait. And my other 2 pieces are self-portraits as well, including this one, but they are in much different styles and they convey a different mood and different meanings behind each one. So this one is about disassociation. It's super crazy, kind of like psychedelic looking compared to the first one, which is more neutral. And this one is a video, so that's completely different from my whole portfolio and completely different from the other 2 pieces that I did in my Parsons challenge. It's still a bunch of self-portraits though, and that's where you can see the correlation between the other 2 pieces. But this is a different medium. 1, 2, it's a different mood. And also I explained the thought process behind making this video. So basically I took different portraits of myself over the course of a few months and I put them together into this one video to show how I had changed both physically and also my moods for different days when I took these pictures, and then I put them all together into one. So I explained that in my essay. In my general description boxes, I didn't say much about that because it was already explained in my essay. So these are my 13 main pieces, and for my other 2 schools, Pratt and SAIC, I added or subtracted or mixed around different pieces to make them more customized to them, but this was like my base portfolio. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about some tips that helped me, that I learned from other videos like this or just from experience. And so my first tip is to do your research and know the type of program that you're getting into. So for fashion design, I know that Parsons at least, you have to do a foundation year of art. So for all of the art majors, you have to do a foundation year. And so you're not actually getting into your major, which is why I wanted to create a portfolio that showed that I could do a lot more than just fashion. So I wanted to show that I could do video, I could do photography, I guess, with that video as well, that I could do painting and drawing and mixed media work. So I wanted to show a total breadth of pieces that was not just fashion design, and I think that's important for Parsons and any other school that has a foundation year, because they want to know that you are willing to branch out and that you are not just one trick pony as well. And my second tip is to focus on your portfolio, but also keep in mind that your essays and your other things count for about half of your application and whether you're accepted or not, and also scholarships. So you want to not just focus on your portfolio and say, oh, well, it's fine if my GPA is not that good, because your GPA can't hurt you. If you have a high GPA, it will only help you. But also at the same time, you have to focus on your portfolio because that's another half of your application. So you have to balance those 2 things out. For me personally, my GPA was a 3.95 when I was applying, but I know that for many art schools, just a 3.5-ish GPA is still very good. So I would focus on that. And your SAT scores and ACT scores really are the part that least matter in this process, because Parsons doesn't even ask for your test scores. You should only really send them in if you feel like they benefit your application. So for me, my test scores were nothing special. I got a 25 on the ACT and a 1220 on the SAT, so I didn't submit them, but I did submit them for the schools that required them. Another thing that I have to say about your portfolio is to make use of the description boxes in Slide Room, because you want to be able to elaborate on your work, and that's really important as any artist. You want to be able to explain your thought process, explain the meaning, These reviewers don't want to see that you just put a bunch of assignments in your portfolio. You might want to have a few studies to show that you can do that, but you don't want all of your pieces to just be assignments or things that you aren't passionate about. You want your pieces to be reflective of you as an artist, and you want them to show your personality and show that you had fun with them. So I recommend that, and I also recommend that you show some experimentation with your work. So some of my work that I put in there, I don't consider my best work technically, but I do think that it shows that I'm willing to branch out a little bit. Those are all the tips that I have, and I hope that you gained a little bit of knowledge on portfolios from this video, and I hope that you have the best of luck with your application process if you are applying to schools. And catch me in other videos in the future on my channel about sewing, thrifting, fashion, just all of that type of stuff, and I'll see you next time.